Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and with me in the Rabbit Hole studio today, he is the co-founder of WilliFest, the Williamsburg Film Festival, as well as the co-founder of Footprint.tv network, Mr. Robin C. Adams. Welcome, Robin.
How are you?
Hey, thanks for coming. I appreciate you schlepping to Brooklyn. I know you're a busy guy this week, so I'm glad we could fit this interview in.
Well, I love Brooklyn because I'm from Brooklyn. So it's
you really? You're a Brooklyn boy.
I'm a Brooklyn boy. Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to get right into it because we were talking before we rolled, and man, we got a lot to talk about. So, yes. First of all, before we get into, we're going to talk about Footprint. We're going to talk about WilliFest. But before we do all that, give me a brief background on you and how you got into, because I know you came from television. How did you get into that, and how did you come to the digital world, so to speak?
Short story long. I mean, the long story short is when I was 13, I knew what I wanted to do. So I was making little movies with friends and family with a Super 8mm film camera. I was in a band with my brothers and cousins, and we made our first Kung Fu movie. And we were just doing it for fun, but I really loved that experience. So since there was no Google, I would go to the library and take out books on filmmaking. And then in that experience, I learned about television as well. And I said, I think I want to do this as a career. And so moving forward, I went to George Westinghouse Technical High School here in downtown Brooklyn. And I studied electrical engineering for broadcast television. And then I discovered they had a fully blown, at the time, state-of-the-art TV studio. And I said, I definitely want to do this for a living. So when I was graduating high school, I called up CNN looking for a job. Because I said, well, I've got this engineering experience, and I've worked in this TV studio. Plus, I've studied on my own. And they said, well, we don't have any openings, but we have an internship program. And I said, I'll take that. So I interned with CNN right out of high school.
Wow.
Before even enrolling. I was enrolled in Brooklyn College, but I hadn't started college yet. So that summer, I interned at CNN, and then at the end of the internship, which was 6 months, CNN said, hey, would you like to work in the studio freelance? So here I was, this 18-year-old kid. I think it was minimum wage, but Monday to Friday, I was working in CNN studio, cameras, audio, learning pretty much the ropes while going to college for 4 years. So I was getting real-world TV experience then. When I graduated college, they offered me a full-time job. So I went right from college to CNN. I became a field sound man and then eventually a cameraman. And 4 years after that, because every year I was there, I sent a resume to NBC because I always wanted to work for NBC. So, but you needed at least 7 years experience.
Wow.
So here I was in year 8 because 4 from college and 4 full-time. And I got the call from NBC. So NBC was a 23-year journey. And there I learned pretty much everything in terms of professional broadcast TV. Because I worked on all the network shows, the Today Show, Nightly News, eventually MSNBC when that came up. Christmas tree lighting at Rockefeller Center, Macy's Day Parade, all these things, Saturday Night Live, all the studio shows. And I really liked that. I liked entertainment more than news. So I was kind of working for the studio division at the same time as the field division, which no one was doing. So within that time, after 23 years at NBC, I was always kind of an entrepreneurial kid. I said, I really wanted to do my own thing. I was kind of doing it anyway. I always had the side hustle. I did a lot of wedding videos when I was a kid, when I was at CNN. And then I started doing a lot of freelance work when I was at NBC. And I had my own production company. And I found that, having studied film in college, I really liked the aesthetic for film in terms of just lighting and cinematography and the real stuff. And because my career really was as a cameraman, I brought those skills with me wherever I shot. So I didn't just learn video. I learned, cinema. I was a cinematographer and a photographer. That was my eye. So I had the opportunity to work with Japanese television as well, NHK, which is the biggest broadcast network, I believe, in Asia. And I'm still freelancing with them. So that was kind of concurrent with NBC, and then eventually German television came along too, so I freelanced for them for 8 years. And once I left NBC, it was Japanese television, German television, a lot of music videos. My buddy from college, who we eventually went on to form WilliFest, the film festival, he and I formed a production company. So I was doing a lot of stuff that I love to do, and through Japanese television have worked on some of the biggest name artist concerts because I had a big concert series. Did you know that NHK and Sony invented high def?
No, I did not know that.
High def that we enjoy today. So NHK, the broadcaster, I was there in 1996 when they had this elephant-sized HD camera, and it was 1125. It wasn't 1080, so it was incompatible with American systems. But they had this equipment, and they said, we're going to show off the technology. The pictures were amazing, and we were doing big concerts. James Taylor, rock and roll, Cheap Trick, Mary J. Blige, James Brown, jazz concerts, rock concerts. The list is long. And this was probably 10 years before high def came to America. So I was working in the high def space. Eventually they had what was called the HD cam. So then, it was just a cassette tape in the camera. And then eventually became digital with, discs and then chips. But it was great to have been in this country working in HD before it was even here.
Now I think people get it more than they did then, but it's always you're embracing the new. Yeah. Like you're always grabbing on new technology. You're always grabbing on the latest, greatest way to do something. And it's great that you saw that. And for all these different networks, you're kind of doing all the jobs, right? So you're shooting, you're editing,
yes.
And are you field producing at this point for news and stuff like that? I
don't do it for news. I've pretty much abandoned the news business because that's a long story. News just doesn't interest me. Mm-hmm. So everything is entertainment. So I'm doing more. I'm doing field producing or full producing or directing. One of our affiliate partners for the film festival, a show called Live It Up, airs on CBS New York and Boston. I produce a lot of segments for that. They also have a digital presence as well.
So you're going out there in the field segment producing for the show. Yes. So since you mentioned WilliFest, we want to talk about Footprint, obviously, but let's talk about WilliFest first since we're on that subject. So WilliFest, as I understand, was a physical film festival in Williamsburg up until this year. Up until 2018.
For 10 years, it was a physical film festival. 8 of those years in Williamsburg, which became insanely expensive. And we lost a lot of sponsors who got priced out of. A lot of our sponsors were local businesses, got priced out of Williamsburg. The theater, the only theater in Williamsburg, gave us a great deal for 3 years. And they said, no, Madonna just rented this out for $20,000. We need what the industry is paying.
Right.
And we said, well, so we had to leave Williamsburg. Williamsburg is more expensive than Manhattan.
Isn't it crazy now? I've actually heard people say, "Oh man, I gotta go back to Manhattan. Brooklyn's too expensive."
Yeah, it's the most expensive place that I read in the country is Brooklyn.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe if you go upstate, if you go to Westchester County, there's probably more expensive up there. But yeah, as far as renting and stuff,
insane.
It's insane, kids. If you're out there thinking about moving to Brooklyn, maybe find a place uptown Manhattan first. Maybe look at Inwood or something.
Or find 10 roommates before you decide to move.
Yeah, and then you'll eat cat food for like a year before you find a job. But so WilliFest now, in the next phase, you're going online with it.
Yeah, it's becoming after this year. This year was our last brick and mortar festival year.
And digitally now, what types of, like, if you're one of our audience members out there and you're looking to create content and you're looking, what fest should I submit to and stuff, what's the benefit of submitting to WilliFest, and what types of films are you looking for?
Well, because we are filmmakers and content creators ourselves, we wanted to make it international because we would get filmmakers from all over the world. But the genre spectrum is very broad. Films, features, dramatic, comedic, animation. We even opened it up to 30-second commercials.
Really?
And then subsequently web series. So we wanted to broaden the platform because as we live in this more digital world, we found there are just a lot more digital content creators who should also have a place to showcase their work. So it's very broad and very open.
And what kind of exposure is WilliFest getting right now for filmmakers? Like who's seeing him, and have you guys been able to, hook filmmakers up with various people in the industry and with, maybe people who are judging the fest and things like that?
Yeah. We, because our core team hails from the world of filmmaking and broadcast television, we've been able to provide opportunities for a lot of filmmakers to reach a broader audience through our TV and digital platforms, which I pretty much have been managing. We created a WilliFest channel for that reason. First, it was just for festival filmmakers, and then I just said, well, anybody who's a filmmaker or a content creator can benefit because the WilliFest channel now sits on this platform that I also co-founded called Footprint Network.
Cool. That brings me to my next subject. That was a beautiful segue. Man, you're so much better at the segue. See, that's television experience. You're so good at segueing. I got to get better at it with this host gig. But yeah, so tell me about Footprint. And like we talked a little bit about before. So Footprint is a multi-channel platform.
Multi-channel network, yes.
Not unlike YouTube. Correct. But if you're a content creator, tell me about it like in terms of what's there, what type of people should be there, and how are you benefiting creators right now?
Primarily an entertainment multi-channel network, but the big difference is that we don't just accept anyone or anything because it isn't YouTube. But we like to, it's a pretty broad spectrum in terms of entertainment. Eventually, the tech folks want to open it up to sports. But what we do is we give a platform because Indavo Media in Atlanta provides a technology platform. So we don't use YouTube as a platform. And they have formed a partnership with Ericsson. If you remember back in the day, Ericsson did the flip phones.
Yep.
Then Sony Ericsson with PlayStation. Well, now Ericsson has gotten into the online digital space in a very big way because they have a lot of money. So they created this thing called the Unified Delivery Network, which is this massive digital global network that moves faster than the speed of light. And if you have a technology platform on this thing, you can run anything through it. So now Indavo Media, which became Indavo Digital Network, is on the Ericsson platform, and Footprint Network, which is owned by Indavo Media, is on the Ericsson Unified Delivery Network as well. So it's very fast in terms of what it's able to do and what it can handle data-wise.
So if you're a creator and you're putting things up there, it's not going to go out into the sea of YouTube.
Correct.
It's going to be more curated. And unlike something like we were talking about before, and we've had them on the show, unlike the folks at Starable.com, you guys are actually a media platform.
Yes.
So you guys, if I can upload my video to Footprint, and it will be hosted there. And there's also the benefit of that is that you guys are helping me market the show.
Yes. And
also you guys are selling ads, and you were saying before that now you're looking at ways for creators to monetize their channels. Yeah. That's maybe a bit better than, say, a YouTube monetization.
Yeah, a better percentage in terms of what the tech company Indavo.
How does that work? Like if you talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old, but if I'm a creator and I want something on Footprint, how do I go about submitting it, and how do I go about the whole process?
Probably the quickest way is to contact me, because myself and Frank Fernandez, who created this thing, we pretty much handle content management in terms of growing and building new channels. We're not on the technology side. So if you shoot me an email, rca@footprint.tv, that's the first point of entry. And then from there, we'll ask to see what you've got. If it's a web series, that's a great thing. We love web series. It can be in any genre as well. You can push the envelope pretty much, but there's certain things they will not allow, like X-rated material.
But you guys are, when you say web series, you're not talking documentary, you're not talking news, you're talking mainly fictional narrative type stuff.
Yes, it can't news, definitely not.
Okay.
There's no news. It can be documentary.
It can be doc.
Yes.
Okay. So for all you doc makers out there, it might be a good platform for you as well. And so once I am sort of accepted, because you guys are screening all this stuff, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So once I'm accepted onto the network, do I have a kind of password that I can upload my stuff?
Yes, you will have your own account. You
kind of create your own channel, just
Correct.
like you would with like YouTube or Vimeo or something like that, right?
Yes, and you would work with Indavo Media is the company. You would work with their marketing department. They'll either design your graphics that go on your channel, or if you have your own channel graphics, you work with them in terms of sizing. So unlike having to just do everything yourself on other platforms, you actually will work with human beings that will help you get your stuff up and running, and then you'll discuss what would you like the marketing strategy to be. They'll offer, say, okay, well, we could do this, we could do this. They do targeted social media marketing initially, and then eventually, probably this year they're going to put more money into bigger marketing. All of the channels on the network, which I think there are maybe 30, I believe.
And to do this, I'm assuming there's like a membership fee involved where I'm sort of belonging to this thing.
Yes.
And I mean, to me it sounds appealing just because anybody who creates content for a living or even for a hobby, the hardest thing is, even harder than making it, is probably getting it seen.
Yeah.
And I think that I had a lady here called Jordan. Her name is Jordan Elizabeth Gelber, and
I know her.
You know her. She was talking about how web series are kind of bigger everywhere else but here, and that the U.S. is almost on the caboose end of the train, catching up to what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a lot of these independent creators able to find a place now because of networks like Footprint and Sika and these different places. My only question is, who's watching and who has access to these things, and where ultimately, like if I'm a creator and I'm either trying to get on HBO or I'm trying to get to a bigger network, is this ultimately going to help me towards my goal, or is this a completely independent thing and I'm just hoping to make money off the content that I put online?
It can help you get to bigger things, because one of the missions of the CEO of Footprint, his name is Paul Hamm, is not just to provide, revenue from advertising partnerships, because he has always been focused, in bigger media areas. He also is working on doing syndication deals with other bigger media companies, where they will license or syndicate content from Footprint Network. So the idea is to, yes, it's in the digital online space, but to make it at some point accessible to bigger media, so that just in terms of the level of visibility, it's much higher.
That sounds. I mean, anything that can help people kind of get seen, get to the next level, build, because that's so hard to do. I think it's and we need, and I think this is also kind of where television is going. So many people I know have cut the cord cable-wise and gone strictly digital. And I think that, if you're not there, if you're not headed that way, or if your content, like whenever you create content, you have to think, where's my end user? Where's my viewer going to be?
Yeah.
And, that's why, in any television product that I'm looking to write or develop, it's all like, what can somebody binge? What can somebody stream? I'm not really worried about network television anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, network television is great. Don't get me wrong. If you want to put this show on on NBC, I'd be happy to be there. But I think that, for the most part, that's where it's headed. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And then, what happens in this sort of land rush that's happening now, where did creators go and where can indie creators go, kind of thing. So it sounds interesting. I'm definitely going to check it out myself and learn more about it. But before we go, because we have to wrap up shortly here, but what if you have a couple of bullet point advice, like if you're a content creator, especially in the web series space, what would you tell people? What advice would you give somebody who's either new to that or looking to kind of take their stuff to the next level?
I would say, and this is less to filmmakers who've studied filmmaking, but I understand there's a new culture of content creation that was created by YouTube in terms of the production of content. But what happens is it's very cookie cutter and looks the same. And what we like to do at Footprint is we look for content, from content creators who have a creative eye beyond just the norm. Because, the goal shouldn't be to get into TV. That can happen. But the digital space, the internet is a very, very big and can be lucrative in terms of a business. But you sort of can't get out there just like doing a YouTube show. So if you can bring good production value, and again, it doesn't have to be expensive. Digital can be very cost effective, but it's got to look good. It's got to sound good. Just having the film festival, we've seen some good stories come through with bad sound and bad picture, or great picture and bad sound, or bad acting and good sound and it's got to be across the board up there. There has to be a standard, and that's one of the things that Frank Fernandez and I we made adamant with our involvement with Footprint. It says it's got to adhere to what we considered broadcast TV or major standards. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to look good, sound good, and if it's dramatic or comedic, be written well and be acted well.
I think you make a great point there, and I hope people can check this out. By the way, let me we got to wrap up, but for WilliFest and Footprint, what are the websites for that? Real quick.
WilliFest is willifest.com, which is WILLIF like Frank EST.com, and Footprint you can find at footprint.tv. That's the URL. We also have an app on for Androids and iPhones. So if you go to your Play Store or your Apple Store, you can download the Footprint Network app. It looks like a black and white F.
Very cool. Thanks so much for joining us and being on the show. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. For more episodes of this show for No Rest for the Weekend, you can always find them on our website, btrp.nyc. We're also, if you want to listen to us, you can find us on all the major podcast channels, Anchor, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. Once again, thank you so much, Robin, for coming. And thank you guys for Behind the Rabbit Productions. I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.